Hello and welcome back to the channel. So on this SPAD.next video, we're going to cover installing and using the virtual joystick. This is a pretty cool feature. Overcomes some of the limitations that are still present with Microsoft Flight Sim's implementation of the external SDK. As we found, there are some things that we just can't access that we used to be able to, P3D or FSX. Now, you could map joystick buttons inside the sim to overcome this. The problem with that is it makes it harder on a plane-by-plane basis. What we mean by that, as an example with the Thrustmaster A320 joystick, is I like to use a lot of the buttons on the base for camera views, being able to go to different places. The problem here is that not all camera views are equal in every plane. Depending on what you're trying to get to with instrument panels or overheads, they might actually use a different assignment for the overhead from plane to plane. Instead, what we're going to do is leverage the fact that we can map the same physical button via SPAD.neXt. We can assign virtual joystick buttons to all the cameras. That's one assignment that we'll do inside of the sim, breaking out all of the individual plane assignments, freeing us up inside SPAD.neXt. Jumping into the SPAD.neXt, we want to talk about first is I am running 0.9.10.12. This was the latest alpha channel release, and keep in mind that there could be some things we're using, especially if there's LVARs, that require it. But note this, application settings, experts, this is where I set it to alpha. So obviously default is release. If you're having troubles, check that. We're going to go ahead and close this. So virtualjoystick.sourceforge.net. This is where you're going to find the vJOY project. Go ahead to the download page, and we're going to go ahead and, in my case, download for Windows 10. Into my downloads, virtual joystick is saved. We're going to go ahead and run it. Virtual joystick installed successfully. So now we've got some virtual joystick device list, joystick feeder, and configure vJOY devices. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to create a number of buttons. 28. And we have one vJoystick created. Now that we're in the sim, let's do the first part. Just bring that music down a bit. Let's go into options. Let's go into controls. New virtual joystick device is present. There we go. There's our inputs. Look at that. 32 joystick button all the way up to 128, and then you've got the virtual joystick axes. Since I want to replace something we've already got, let's go ahead and let's look at assigned, and you'll see here's what I currently have assigned to this joystick. So now what we want to do, move all of these same events, and we're going to map those inside of the virtual joystick. So we can set up a ton. You'll also notice that external quick view left maps to cockpit quick view left. 14 gets used to toggle between the cockpit mode and the external mode. And when you do that, you're able to overlap these events as well. First, I'm going to write down what events I assigned where, just to make the mapping a little bit easier. Now that we got those copied down so we know what we did, let's go back to our TCA joystick and let's clear out all these buttons. Jumping back over here, we've got nothing assigned. So we're going to go now and we're going to say, let's get into cameras. External view mode. Let's go ahead and toggling between the cockpit and external view. We can come all the way down and we'll start at the bottom and we will use joystick 128. And we'll name this vJOY SPAD.neXt. And that way everything here tells me, oh yeah, these assignments are set up, and then I use SPAD.neXt to drive this. So for our toggle drone, let's go ahead and same thing. Let's hop on down here to joystick button 127. And we'll validate. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that we map the same ones that we can leverage, like looking left, looking right, up, down, those are rear, those sorts of things. We want to leverage the exact same things. And this is why I looked and wrote down the previous settings to the TCA stick. Was now, as I assign these, I can look at what I've already assigned and look at how I did overlap them before. If we take this guy and we map it to virtual joystick button 1, this will say, hey, are you sure you want to do this binding? And we're going to say, yes, it's okay. They can be duplicated because they don't affect one another, because you have to toggle first between whether you're looking at an internal mode, the cockpit mode, or the external. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to double these up. Now we come in and we've got our instrument views as well. So previously we had used separate buttons for instrument views. So we'll go ahead and we will give these now buttons starting at 12. Now we've gone and we have gotten all of these tied all the way up to button 23 for instrument view number 10. Now, those were pretty much all the things that I had mapped originally. And so we're going to go ahead and we are now going to launch SPAD.neXt. Now that we got SPAD.neXt open, let's go to our 320 pilot joystick. Now, I like to turn on the programming button, so the Lego block. Remember, this is useful for being able to press the buttons to get it to jump to the button for you. Let's go to device settings, global. This will be faster. We're going to make all of those buttons except for button 17, which shows up at the bottom of the slider, the thrust slider. We're going to make all of these simple push buttons. By doing this, it will make things a little bit easier. So now that we've set those as simple push buttons, we've got to restart. By changing these to simple events, you can have button pressed and button released events. Also means that when button is pressed, it can repeat that event. So previously on button 13, that was the reset cockpit view. We're going to add action, virtual joystick. So virtual joystick, vJOY 1. We want to press release a button, and our target for reset, hence why we wrote that down, target to be button number 7, and mode is a press and release. When we get to things like the internal panels and we're trying to figure out, hey, I always want this button to be my overhead, I always want this to be my quadrant, this to be my MIP, etc., we're going to have a much easier task with that. Button number 12 was previously our view right, and button 11 was view left. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to map those. Now, quick tip, we can copy this event, go over here, paste, double click, so then we can get to button number 10 much faster. Just a way to save a few keystrokes. So we've got our buttons starting to come together. So from our original list, we are getting there. We're going to paste. Again, just faster. Going to go find button 21. Seems like we have to do the mode every time, not a big deal. Still a lot faster. Instrument view 5 would be button 18. Now these are kind of the ones that we're gonna end up mapping on a plane by plane basis. That way they get where we want every time. Save it up. Now, if you wanted to, device settings, let's go ahead, hit summary, only for this device, hit go, awesome, and it launches my PDF. And as you can see, this tells me that, you know, button 13, that's going to trigger vJOY 7, 12, vJOY 2, 11, vJOY 1, etc. And of course, you can name these things, which is kind of cool, but we're not. The point is, hey, look, I can see what I configured to which vJOY. And with that, we have knocked off all of what I originally had mapped. Now, there are some other things that we haven't mapped yet, like the 45 left, the 45 right. Those could be considered some cool looks. But what we really want to do right now is we want to get into the sim and we want to see if things are working the way we expect. And we'll see you inside the sim. So we have our first little issue. Awesome, our reset works. So all of our next and previous instrument view buttons, those all nicely work. And then if we toggle inside. Now is how we figure out, well, but why is that not working? Well, that's not working because we're doing a press and release, and that one is expecting more, that you hold it. So let's go ahead and on button pressed, right, we're gonna take this and we're just gonna send the press command. Now we're going to add an event, button released, add action, advanced, virtual joystick, vJOY, press and release a button. Our target is, was it button 1? And then we'll do release. Release. vJOY button 1. There you go. All right, so now get SPAD.next out of the way. Now it does what we expect. While holding it down, it stares out over the wing, and when you let go, it comes back inside. So the exact same behavior we had when mapping the button inside of the sim. So now let's go ahead and let's do the same for button number 12. This is going to be faster. I'm going to copy all events. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to paste and replace. And just so that we've already got them, and now I can just jump to button 2, press. It's too bad I have to reset the press or the release, but whatever. It only takes us a couple seconds. Still way faster than doing it all from scratch. So now we've got that working. So we can look left, we can look right, and we of course have our reset. We've got our previous, we've got our next. So that works exactly how one would expect it. So to fix those, same thing. We're going to come in, we're going to go to button 16. I'm going to take this one, and we are going to press it. And then we're going to add an event, button released, virtual joystick, vJOY 1, and it's button 9, and this time it's the release. Copy all events. Now let's go over to button 15 and let's paste. We are going to replace, and then we're going to change these to button 10. Oh, that's the press. And then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to release button 10. So yeah, 18 is up top. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this one, copy this event, and I want this to be here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paste, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to delete that event. I want that to be the top. So this one, we're going to change this to instrument view 4. So button 17, right? And the purpose for that is because I don't care to look here with that button. That's exactly what I want. So that will take me up top. That is going to always be my quadrant area. Then this one, which was up top, we could make this go with button 16 for now. Nine and 10, and we're going to reverse them. All right, so that makes sense. This one, we're going to make 15. So there to there. What's nice is that toggles you back and forth in and out of the instrument view. I didn't really realize that before. So that's cool. You can look down, come back up. Okay, that's the throttle. That's that info, gets you nicely to the PFD control. There's my base, and there's my up top. Cool. With that, the only thing left to do is, now that I've done this, what I generally like to do is publish these, and that way I can grab them and use them again. So I normally go to online snippets. This is where I wish I could replace this guy and say, you know, I want to publish this. So complete device, because I jacked up the font. You guys don't see it. Again, this is a 4K monitor, but I wanted it to be somewhat readable in this video. So all aircrafts, I don't care. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say using the vJOY buttons to configure views in Microsoft Flight Sim. Awesome. Now, we go ahead, we submit that, and it publishes it. Great. So if I wanted to, I could click on any button in this joystick, go to online snippets, and I'm going to find this profile that I just did. Go ahead and say, you know, the 320 stick, there it is. I can take it down and click OK, and it'll replace everything. So that's perfect. Now, as you can see, one of the other really big benefits to this is now all those joystick events will fire even if my attention is not inside of the sim. And that's really cool when you think about it, that, you know, when you map buttons inside of Microsoft Flight Sim, you have to have your focus in Microsoft Flight Sim. And that's one of the benefits. If I'm inside of Navigraph, or I've got something going on in a web browser, I'm in SPAD.next configuring a switch. This gives us a lot more flexibility now that we can still press buttons on our joystick. And that's why I want to look at mapping axes next time. So with that, we'll put it to an end for this video. We now know how to install, set up virtual joystick inside of the sim, then how to map those events inside of SPAD.next. As always, hit me up on the Discord if there's something that you think I should do. Sorry this one took so long, just been a little busy. Anyway, have fun flying with SPAD.next, and talk to you guys later.